Could the future Queen of England truly choose to walk away from the monarchy for the sake of her children? That single question has sent waves of shock and disbelief through Buckingham Palace, the media, and the public alike. Imagine a woman, graceful, poised, admired by millions across the world, choosing motherhood over centuries of unbending royal tradition, over a life of privilege and prestige that most could only dream of. And yet, here we stand in that reality. Kate Middleton, the Princess of Wales, has made an announcement that no one anticipated. It concerns her greatest treasures, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. She has made the deeply personal decision to step back from several of her royal duties to protect her family from the blinding glare of the public eye and to give her children what she calls a normal, grounded life. But what does that truly mean? And why make such a decision now? Before we continue, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell to stay updated with every story as it unfolds. Now, think about it for a moment. The world observes the royal family every single day without pause. Cameras hover endlessly outside their homes. Reporters analyse every word they speak, every outfit they wear, every smile they offer. Social media bursts with opinions, judgments, and criticisms, transforming daily existence into a relentless pressure chamber, even for the most composed individuals. And in the centre of that whirlwind stands a mother who understands that every single decision she makes will be dissected, debated, and dramatised. Kate is not merely choosing for herself, she is choosing for her children. She is declaring, loudly and unmistakably, that no title, no crown, and no ancient protocol is worth trading away their happiness, privacy, or emotional well-being. But what could drive a person, a princess no less, to take such a daring step? What force could be powerful enough, urgent enough, to make her challenge the very system that has defined her entire life? To understand this, we must look deeper beyond the headlines, beyond the carefully orchestrated public appearances, beyond the meticulously polished photos and videos. We have to peer into the pressures, the fears, and the quiet moments that have shaped Kate Middleton into the woman she is today, a woman who has mastered the balance between elegance and endurance, between grace and unyielding strength. Imagine, for just a moment, being in her shoes, every movement scrutinised, every smile analysed, every gesture interpreted through the lens of the global media. Privacy, in the true sense, ceases to exist. Her children, the most precious parts of her soul, grow up surrounded by flashing lights and curious eyes. Even something as simple as a playdate transforms into a media spectacle. She cannot walk her children to school without cameras waiting. She cannot enjoy a casual stroll through the park without whispers and lenses following her every step. What kind of childhood is that? What kind of existence does that create? And perhaps the most piercing question of all, what parent would not question whether this is truly the right world for their children to grow up in? Kate's announcement did not come on a whim. It was not spontaneous or impulsive. Reports from within the palace describe weeks of careful reflection, private discussions behind closed doors, long, heartfelt conversations with her husband, Prince William, and deep moments of soul-searching solitude. She thought about the years ahead, not just the next royal engagement or public charity appearance, but the decades to come. She considered who her children might become, what values they might hold, and how the relentless pressures of royal life could shape them in ways beyond her control. It is one thing to endure constant public attention yourself. It is something entirely different to see your children endure it before they even understand what fame or duty means. Eventually, Kate reached her conclusion. No honour, no ceremony, no royal responsibility, no matter how grand, is worth the potential cost to her children's emotional health and future peace of mind. Stepping back from the monarchy is not merely about cutting back on public engagements or limiting the presence of cameras. It is a quiet rebellion, a rejection of a centuries-old system that has dictated personal lives, marriages, careers, and even daily routines with unflinching rigidity. The royal institution thrives on tradition, expectation, and order. Every individual within it has a defined role, and every role comes with unspoken but immutable rules. Historically, even the slightest deviation has been treated as scandalous. Yet here we are, witnessing a princess boldly choosing to bend, or perhaps completely redefine those long-standing rules in the name of love, family, and sanity. Consider the contradiction at play. Kate has devoted much of her life to public service. She has been the embodiment of royal grace and composure, attending hundreds of charitable functions, hosting dignitaries, and serving as a global symbol of refinement and duty. And yet, beneath that polished exterior lies a deeply human, fiercely protective mother. She is, before all else, a parent. The crown, the ceremonies, the palaces, the legacy, all of it pales beside the emotional and psychological safety of her children. There is a profound, unspoken courage in this kind of choice. A courage rarely recognised, because true bravery often happens quietly, in private decisions rather than public applause. Now, let's pause and ask why this story carries such weight today. The royal family has been sailing through turbulent waters in recent years. Scandals, controversies, and unexpected departures have altered the monarchy's image in the eyes of the public. The exit of Meghan Markle, Prince Harry's outspoken decisions, and the ceaseless media obsession with every royal birth and event have all intensified scrutiny and strain. As the world debates the monarchy's future, Kate has been quietly, steadily preparing to make a decision that could reshape how the royal family approaches the balance between parenthood, privacy, and public responsibility. The timing of her choice could not be more significant. This is not merely a single act or announcement. It is part of a larger conversation about what family means within a system that has, for generations, placed duty above all else. Kate's choice echoes far beyond palace walls, touching a universal nerve. It raises the same questions that countless parents grapple with every day. How much should we sacrifice for our careers, for tradition, for societal approval? How do we protect our children from the harshness of the world while still preparing them for it? And ultimately, what does it truly take to choose love over obligation when the stakes could not be higher? Kate's decision is far more than a personal statement. It is a cultural moment that challenges the foundations of royal tradition itself. It demands that the monarchy, the media, and the public stop and reconsider what truly holds value. While headlines may sensationalise the shock or the gossip, the deeper story remains far more compelling. The portrait of a mother's fierce devotion, a subtle act of defiance against a rigid institution, and an intimate reflection on what it means to put family above everything else. So what does stepping back really look like for Kate and her children? It means fewer public events and far more family time behind closed doors. It means deliberately protecting George, Charlotte and Louis from the suffocating pressures that come with being the third, fourth and fifth heirs to the throne. It means attending engagements on her own terms rather than following every protocol to the letter. It means saying no to duties that threaten to intrude on the normal life she is determined to preserve for her children. For the first time in her public life, every major decision she makes will be guided by love, not by duty. And yet, even with this careful preparation, consequences are inevitable. The palace cannot simply look the other way. The press cannot resist the story. Public opinion is already split. and insiders suggest that the ripple effects of this decision could alter the monarchy in ways no one could have foreseen. Every move Kate makes from this point forward will be dissected, discussed, and debated. Each step she takes will bear the weight of centuries of royal legacy, but she remains undeterred. She understands the risks, she accepts the challenges, and she stands ready to face them all for her children. Here's the truth that might surprise you. Kate's announcement is not the end of the story. It is merely the beginning. The real depth lies in the unseen. The private conversations, the emotional battles, the palace meetings filled with tension and resolve. It is the timeless conflict between public expectation and personal conviction, between history and modernity, between duty and love. It is what happens when one woman decides that some things, the innocence, security, and happiness of her children, are worth far more than any crown or title could ever offer. So, what comes next? How will the palace respond behind its gilded gates? How will the media spin and frame this unprecedented step? And, most importantly, how will George, Charlotte, and Louis find their place in a world that watches every move they make, now guided by a mother who has chosen, above all else, to protect them, no matter the cost? What followed would transform everything in ways that no one could have predicted. Then there is the public. The British people have long held a fascination with royalty, but that fascination often turns harsh and unforgiving. Every outfit is dissected for hidden symbolism. Every facial expression is read as if it were a deliberate political statement. Every single word is parsed for subtext and double meaning. In an environment like that, mistakes are not easily forgiven. The very same public that showers the royals with adoration can in an instant become sharply critical and deeply unforgiving. Kate, perhaps more than anyone in recent memory, has had to navigate this delicate and precarious balance, holding on to dignity while trying to maintain a private life at the same time. Her approach has been a careful mix of grace, patient endurance, and quiet, strategic resistance. She's learned to weather ceaseless attention, to preserve composure under intense pressure, and to shield her children whenever possible. Over the years, she has mastered the art of subtlety, those small, almost invisible acts of defiance that escape most observers yet protect her autonomy, her sanity, and the inner life of her family. Yet despite all of these efforts, the pressure never truly eases. It is a constant, lingering shadow, an invisible force that influences every decision, every cautious step, and every carefully chosen word. The stakes become highest when her children are involved. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis are not merely future symbols of the monarchy. They are young, vulnerable children trying to learn, play, and find a sense of self in a world that is anything but ordinary. Kate recognises both the promise and the peril that accompany their position. She understands that royal status brings extraordinary opportunities and privileges, but it also brings unique vulnerabilities that most families never face. The scrutiny can be unrelenting. Expectations can feel suffocating. For a mother, that combination breeds deep anxiety and constant concern. Kate's response has been both resolute and measured. She has deliberately chosen to place her children's well-being ahead of some traditional royal obligations, carving out private spaces within an overwhelmingly public life, and doing everything she can to give them as much of a normal childhood as circumstances will allow. This was not an impulsive reaction. It is the culmination of many years of close observation, long periods of reflection, and some of the most difficult decisions she has ever had to make. It is a choice that carries enormous consequences, both in the eyes of the palace and in the wider public sphere. What makes this story especially compelling is the constant tension between appearance and reality. From the outside, Kate Middleton presents as the picture of composure, elegance, and near-perfect poise. From the inside, however, she is contending with some of the most intense and emotionally charged pressures imaginable. Each day becomes a negotiation, a delicate balancing act between duty, public expectation, and personal conviction. The reverberations of her choices will be felt for generations. So the pressing question becomes, how does someone retain their sanity and protect a family under such conditions? How does a mother find her way through a system that is structured to privilege tradition over individual happiness? Kate's answer has been quiet, yet revolutionary. She draws boundaries where she can. She asserts the autonomy that is still available to her. She consistently places her children above every other consideration. Still, even the most carefully constructed strategy cannot remove pressure entirely. The palace apparatus, the press, and public sentiment all exert their own forms of influence. The instant she deviates, even in the smallest way, the consequences can be dramatic and far-reaching. As we examine Kate Middleton's life beneath the relentless glare, we begin to see why her recent announcement provoked such shock across the United Kingdom and beyond. This is a woman who has perfected the near-impossible skill of remaining composed under unrelenting observation, who has endured scrutiny on a scale most of us cannot fathom, and who now stands at a crossroads facing one of the most consequential decisions of her life. She is aware that the world is watching, that the palace is watching, and that she has a family whose sense of safety and normalcy she is determined to protect above all else. Yet, she is not immobilized by fear, nor does she allow expectation to define her choices. She has made a decision that is daring, bold, and controversial, one that may well redefine what it means to be a royal mother in the modern era. Her choice goes beyond simply shielding her children. It is also an effort to exert control over a centuries-old system that has dictated private lives for generations. What unfolded next behind the palace doors would show just how high the stakes were and how unprepared many people would be for the consequences that followed. What does it even mean to be a mother in the most scrutinised family in the world? Imagine constantly having your instincts questioned, your parenting decisions second-guessed by strangers, and your love and judgment measured against the weight of centuries of tradition. That is the daily reality confronting Kate Middleton. Every parenting choice she makes carries reverberations far beyond the nursery or the playground. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis are not only her children, they are also living symbols of the monarchy's future small individuals whose every move is evaluated through a public microscope. For Kate, navigating motherhood under such an unrelenting gaze is a balancing act so exacting that few can truly comprehend it. From the very moment she first held Prince George in her arms, Kate realised the stakes were unlike any other. This was no ordinary infant. This was a member of the next generation, already under global observation. The joy of those early private hours, the hush of late nights, the soft lullabies, and the first fragile smiles was almost immediately shadowed by the awareness that privacy was no longer a given. Each smile could be captured, every fleeting moment analysed, and every small milestone potentially broadcast to millions. Can you imagine the kind of pressure where your most intimate joys are transformed into public property? Yet, even with this knowledge, Kate had to find ways to protect her children while continuing to fulfill her public responsibilities. Her maternal instincts often came into conflict with strict protocol. She wanted to shield Prince George from unnecessary attention, while tradition demanded he appear at certain public ceremonies, learn the formal etiquette of royal life, and begin to take on the responsibilities his position will one day require. The friction between motherhood and monarchy was not an abstract idea. It was tangible, daily, and emotionally exhausting. Diaries, accounts from those close to the family, and the occasional rare interview paint a portrait of a mother continually negotiating between an instinctive desire for a normal family life and the ceremonial demands of her role. Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis only magnified these challenges. Each child brought new joy, new worries, and new logistical obstacles. The palace, for all its grandeur, was never designed to host an ordinary childhood. Playrooms must be adapted to comply with security protocols. Playgrounds are ringed by camera lenses, and the homes of potential friends are often off-limits for safety reasons. Every birthday party, every school morning, every family outing requires meticulous planning. For Kate, this was both heartbreaking and deeply frustrating. She longed for her children to indulge in the simple pleasures of her own upbringing: picnics in the countryside, sleepovers with friends, spontaneous family trips. But the burden of royal expectation made such unscripted moments rare and complicated. The princess's approach has been intentionally subtle yet purposeful. She has carved out private, protected spaces within palace life, insisting on family dinners, consistent bedtime routines, and quiet outings without the intrusion of cameras. She has implemented meticulous measures to ensure her children experience the semblance of ordinary childhood, choosing regular local schools where possible instead of only elite institutions, encouraging hobbies and pastimes that stay away from media attention, and fostering friendships outside the royal bubble. Each of these choices signals her deep commitment to motherhood, often expressed in quiet acts of defiance against the assumptions tied to her title. But the pressure goes far beyond mere privacy concerns. Every parenting decision is politicised and interpreted through someone else's agenda. Dress Prince George in a particular colour, and tabloids will spin theories about his future conduct or future kingship tendencies. Allow Princess Charlotte to play outdoors without a tiara, and critics will question whether she is being denied a proper royal upbringing. Even the simplest gestures of affection become fodder for commentary. For Kate, the burden of constant judgment is exhausting, yet she has learned to move through it with poise. Still, the emotional cost is unmistakable. Nights of doubt, private tears, and an ever-present fear of making mistakes that might harm her children. How truly do you protect young people from a world that watches and judges every laugh, every stumble, and every small triumph? Kate's determination to place motherhood above ceremonial duty is not only about immediate safety, it is about long-term psychological and emotional development. She worries about the cumulative effects of a life lived under constant observation, the erosion of autonomy, the pressure to perform, and the difficulty of forming genuine friendships. She understands that royal trappings, glamorous as they may be, can impede the growth of resilience, independence, and authentic self-awareness. For that reason, she has been willing to make significant sacrifices to mitigate these risks. Her husband, Prince William, shares a central role in maintaining this balance. As the future king, he is keenly aware of centuries of expectation and the role tradition plays, yet he also respects and supports Kate's maternal instincts. The couple has forged a partnership rooted in mutual respect and shared priorities, where the children's welfare sometimes takes precedence over strict protocol. There have been late-night discussions, strategic planning sessions, and quiet moments of mutual resolve, small rebellions of a kind each aimed at ensuring the children grow up as much like ordinary kids as possible. And yet, the challenges never relent. Family holidays are subject to scrutiny. Casual family walks become media events. Paparazzi stake out schools and private residences, and social media amplifies every perceived misstep into a trending story. Kate's instincts are to protect her children at all costs, but the machinery of royalty continually tests those boundaries. How does one maintain even a semblance of normality in a life that is fundamentally anything but normal? That question has guided Kate's choices at every turn, and the emotional stakes could not be higher. She has frequently voiced private concerns about the pressures her children face and the possible impacts on their emotional health. She worries about Prince George's ability to understand and manage intense public expectation, about Princess Charlotte's developing sense of self in a world obsessed with image, and about Prince Louis's freedom to play, explore, and be judged by nothing other than his own curiosity. Each milestone is accompanied by introspection. Are they truly happy? Are they growing in resilience? Are they learning the skills that will allow them to lead fulfilled lives both inside and outside royal circles? Kate's approach to parenting is modern in its sensibilities and quietly revolutionary in its implications. She refuses to let image trump the emotional needs of her children. She insists on rituals that create stability, on privacy that nurtures identity, and on boundaries that preserve childhood. She challenges entrenched norms softly but with real effect. Her philosophy centres on the conviction that love, steady guidance, and emotional security matter far more than titles, carefully curated appearances, or rigid protocol. In doing so, she establishes a precedent that may guide future royal mothers faced with the same dilemmas. This is not without contradiction. Kate remains deeply committed to her public role, to the causes she champions, and to the standing of the monarchy. She is not renouncing the crown. Rather, she refuses to accept that her children must pay the price of a childhood lost to duty. She seeks to balance obligation with devotion, elegance with empathy, and tradition with meaningful transformation. Every decision she makes carries weight, and the resulting ripples spread through the palace, through the media, and across public consciousness. And still, despite careful planning and constant negotiation, moments of doubt arise. Kate worries about whether she can truly shield her children from the relentless glare of public life. She fears judgment from within palace walls, from the press, and from the standards of history. There is an ongoing tension between her protective instincts and the immutable realities of royal life. Each day brings new challenges. An unanticipated media leak, a sudden public event, a stinging critique. Yet, through it all, she remains steadfast, guided by the conviction that the stakes are greater than personal comfort, tradition, or expectation. The stakes, she knows, are nothing less than the lives and well-being of her children. Kate's story is at once extraordinary and profoundly human extraordinary, because she operates within a system few will ever encounter, and human because her choices are driven by universal parenting instincts, love, protection, and the hope of a better future for one's children. The tension between motherhood and monarchy is a constant drama in her life, often invisible to outsiders, but powerful in its effects. It is this tension that led her to make the most consequential decision of her life, the announcement that stunned a nation and echoed across the globe. But what happens when a mother's instinct collides with centuries of expectation? When love demands actions that tradition cannot easily condone, and when stepping back to protect children has the potential to alter the monarchy itself, Kate was about to find out. The consequences of her choice would shake palace life, ignite media debate, and divide public opinion in ways that few could have anticipated. The moment had come when motherhood could no longer wait, when love finally triumphed over duty. In that quiet, determined act, Kate set a course that would change everything. What unfolded next behind the palace doors would reveal the full measure of her resolve, and it left many people questioning the very foundations of royal life. Imagine being a child whose every action, every word, and every smile is watched and scrutinised by millions of people around the world. For most of us, childhood is a protected sanctuary, a phase to explore, to make mistakes, to learn, and to grow with a measure of freedom. But for Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, that sanctuary is under near constant siege. From the very moment each of them entered the world, they became symbols not only of the immediate family, but of an institution that carries centuries of weighty expectation. At the heart of their lives stands a mother determined to give them something scarce and precious, a slice of normality. George, the eldest, is frequently described as bright, observant, and endlessly curious. From an age when most children are still mastering simple tasks, he has been thrust into the public eye, attending official ceremonies, offering polite waves to assembled crowds, and meeting visiting dignitaries while still learning everyday things like tying shoelaces or singing nursery rhymes. Picture the pressure on a young boy asked to reconcile public perception with the simple urge to play, to run, and to be childish. Despite these external demands, Kate has been fiercely protective. She insists on routines and private moments that remain invisible to the cameras and shielded from public commentary. Charlotte, full of charm and a quiet determination, faces her own distinctive set of challenges. A princess by title, but a child by nature, she grows up with the weight of protocol pressing subtly on her shoulders. Every appearance, every outfit choice, and every friendly wave is examined for symbolic meaning. A small misstep can quickly be turned into a headline. Yet Charlotte possesses a spark, a vivacity and independent streak that mirror her mother's influence. She seems intent on maintaining a sense of individuality inside a tightly controlled environment. Kate understands this delicate balance, to give Charlotte the freedom to be herself, while also teaching the social skills and awareness necessary to navigate a highly visible public life safely. Louis, the youngest, possibly presents the most complicated challenge of all. He is being raised in a world where expectations and narratives have already been set for him long before he can express himself in full sentences, whereas his older siblings have already started learning how to handle attention. Louis's formative years will likely be even more tightly managed. Kate is determined that he tastes the ordinary joys of early childhood laughter, messy play, discovery, and learning without the relentless glare of lenses and headlines. She has taken extraordinary measures to create spaces where he can act simply as a child, even when palace walls enclose that private world. Creating something resembling a normal childhood inside the framework of royalty is far from straightforward. Schools, playdates, holidays, and simple social interactions all require meticulous planning and careful consideration. Kate has been known to favour regular local schooling when possible, rather than exclusive elite options, a choice meant to foster friendships outside the royal bubble and to keep family routines at the centre of daily life. Each action is deliberate, every decision guided by the principle of protecting the children's mental and emotional health. All of this must be accomplished while she remains a public figure, constantly balancing duty with discretion. The challenge intensifies under the glare of public curiosity and unrelenting media scrutiny. Paparazzi often wait for hours outside schools and residences. Social media amplifies the tiniest detail into a global story. A scraped knee, a misplaced toy, or a shy grin can be spun into a narrative that reaches millions in minutes. Kate tries to manage these risks through strategic planning, careful timing, and protective routines, but even the most thorough preparations cannot eliminate exposure entirely. Every outing, every school morning, and every family moment carries the possibility of unwanted attention. That constant vigilance is draining, even for someone as composed and resilient as Kate. Nevertheless, her approach to parenting feels strikingly modern. She places a premium on emotional intelligence, resilience, and independence. She encourages curiosity, creativity, and self-expression in ways that respect the children's need to be children. She fosters messy art projects, outdoor play, and simple family games, the kinds of activities that build character and joy. At the same time, she teaches them about their public roles and prepares them gently for the responsibilities that accompany their positions. That dual task, nurturing a private childhood while equipping them for life in the spotlight, is a high wire she walks with notable skill. One of the most revealing aspects of her parenting is a firm insistence on family unity. Mealtimes, bedtime rituals, and private conversations are non-negotiable. Even amid heavy public schedules, she carves out time to be fully present with her children. Those close to the family describe her as fiercely protective, sometimes bending protocol in small ways to preserve intimate moments. She knows those private rituals are where a child's identity truly forms, not in carefully staged public appearances. Still, Kate's protective instincts are constantly tested by the system itself. The royal structure is designed to place duty above personal preference. Expectations from advisors, palace tradition, and public duty pull in one direction, while her maternal instincts pull the other way. Each decision requires negotiation. How long should George be expected to stay at a formal ceremony? Should Charlotte go along to a public engagement or remain at home? What level of exposure is acceptable for little Louis? These are not trivial queries. They are daily dilemmas with long-term implications for the children's development and sense of security, and the consequences are both personal and institutional. Kate understands that her children will inherit a mixture of privilege and scrutiny. They will grow under the weight of public opinion, historical precedent, and the expectations of a nation. She worries about their emotional resilience, their ability to form genuine friendships, and their sense of self-worth in a culture obsessed with appearance and status. For her, motherhood is about more than daily care. It is about preparing her children for a world most of us can hardly imagine, equipping them with the tools to be grounded, kind, and self-aware. Her efforts show up in small but meaningful choices. The family opts for private outings wherever possible, engages in playful domestic activities, and marks milestones with discretion rather than spectacle. These deliberate practices act as a buffer against the relentless public gaze, allowing the children room to develop naturally. It remains a tireless balancing act that demands courage and ingenuity every single day. Nevertheless, challenges arise with cruel regularity. Public events cannot be avoided altogether. The media follows nearly every public appearance. Admirers and critics alike dissect the children's behaviour, clothing, and interactions. Insiders say Kate experiences intense stress before and after public engagements, closely monitoring how each event affects the children's emotional state and readiness for future public life. The level of responsibility she shoulders is almost unimaginable to most parents, a weight that rests persistently on her shoulders. What makes her approach remarkable is a refusal to let the children's happiness be compromised. She has shown a readiness to challenge tradition, to push back subtly against expectations, and to place emotional well-being above ceremonial obligation. This is not mere parenting. It is a quiet revolution inside one of the world's most rigid institutions. Each choice she makes reflects a deep recognition that childhood is singular and cannot be replicated, that normality cannot be outsourced, and that love sometimes requires deliberate defiance. Even with careful planning, the path forward is fraught with uncertainty. The public's fascination, palace expectations, and media intrusion create a volatile environment in which one misstep can explode into controversy. Every outing and every private moment demands precision, strategy, and emotional insight. One poorly judged decision could spark public criticism, alter perception, or worse, undermine the children's sense of security. Despite the risks, Kate continues forward with firm resolve. Her love for George, Charlotte, and Louis informs every negotiation and every calculated risk. She recognises that her role is not only to guide them through childhood, but also to prepare them for life as future leaders, public figures, and individuals with their own identities. She seeks a balance between readying them for public duty and shielding them from its most invasive aspects, a task that requires perseverance, strategy, and deep courage. A persistent question underlies every choice. How much exposure is too much? How does one shield children from the pressures of royalty, while still equipping them to fulfill the roles that destiny and duty may demand? Kate accepts that there are no easy answers. Each decision has consequences, and each moment of genuine normality must be actively defended. Yet she persists in prioritising what she deems most important: the children's emotional, psychological, and social well-being. The lives of George, Charlotte, and Louis are undeniably extraordinary, but they are also fragile. Kate appreciates how fleeting childhood is, how precious innocence can be, and how quickly the pressures of public life can erode both. Her strategies: private schooling when feasible, carefully curated public engagements, family time prioritised ahead of obligation, and tailored emotional guidance for each child, are not merely practical tactics. They are acts of resistance that challenge the very idea of how children should be raised within royalty. Still, even these measures cannot guarantee certainty. The palace remains an arena of tradition, scrutiny, and relentless expectation. The media will continue to follow, the public will continue to judge, and the royal system will never fully bend to individual desire. Kate's children, despite every protective effort, will grow up with both privilege and pressure, with love and expectation, with freedom and constraint. The question lingers: how far will she go to keep them safe? How much will she challenge tradition, bend established protocol, or risk public opinion on their behalf? Her choices are set to push boundaries in ways few anticipated, and the effects of those choices will ripple well beyond the nursery walls. What happened next? When Kate acted on her maternal instincts in a manner that challenged centuries of expectation, would shock the palace and the wider world in ways that felt unprecedented. Consider for a moment that the very institution designed to protect family legacy and stability might also quietly undermine personal peace, autonomy, and selfhood. That paradox is the one Kate Middleton confronts every day. The monarchy, wrapped in centuries of tradition, glamour, and ceremony, may look to the public like a realm of privilege and perfection. But behind palace doors there exists a far more complicated and, at times, darker reality. A toxic landscape shaped by power plays, ingrained protocols, and relentless scrutiny. For Kate, the challenge of navigating that terrain while raising 3 children has become one of the most formidable trials of her life. The toxicity often begins in small ways. Every gesture is observed. Every comment is passed. In a system built on hierarchy and legacy, deviation from the expected norm can prompt criticism or, at worst, social exclusion. Mistakes are amplified, reputations prove fragile, and genuine privacy becomes an increasingly rare commodity. Kate quickly discovered that the palace, for all its history and grandeur, does not always cultivate individuality or personal well-being. Instead, it often enforces conformity and demands polished performance, and the cost of dissent can be severe. Inside those gilded halls, rivalries simmer, and alliances shift. Advisors manoeuvre for influence. Senior royals protect tradition with fervour. Public smiles at functions mask a less tidy reality behind closed doors. Kate has witnessed the subtle manipulations and strategic calculations that characterise palace life. It is a world where image and perceived loyalty can trump candour and personal welfare, and where the smallest perceived misstep can spark ripples of tension. This toxic dynamic is amplified externally by media forces. Every royal gesture is magnified, every rumour is echoed, and every vulnerability is exposed. The palace has long practiced public relations, but it cannot control every narrative. Paparazzi, tabloid press, and online commentators maintain a relentless focus, often reshaping facts for sensational effect. Kate has suffered the consequences from misleading stories to invasive attention. The strain of constant public evaluation is not theoretical. It is a lived reality that shapes both her personal life and her parenting choices. Power dynamics within the royal family amplify that toxicity. Expectations of unquestioning obedience, strict adherence to protocol, and a network of unspoken hierarchies create an atmosphere that can feel tense, claustrophobic, and often stifling. Senior royals exercise influence in ways that are rarely overt. Sometimes their power is exerted through polite suggestions, other times through subtle pressure, quiet implications, or the weight of tradition itself. Few decisions are ever purely personal. Almost everything becomes subject to negotiation, compromise, and the ever-present gaze of history. Kate, despite her composed public manner and acute intelligence, is fully conscious of these dynamics and of how they limit the space she has to act independently. That tension is made worse by historical precedent. The monarchy bears a long memory. High-profile scandals, public departures, and bitter family conflicts have each left marks on the institution and have created informal codes that later generations learn to read and follow. Kate has observed these lessons closely, watching how the lives of those who came before her unfolded, how Diana navigated scrutiny and heartbreak, how other royal women were judged and critiqued, and how private struggles all too often ballooned into public spectacle. The palace's legacy is therefore both instructive and cautionary, a continual reminder of the delicate tightrope that exists between duty and personal integrity. The toxicity in this world is not only systemic, it is deeply personal. Relationships inside the palace are frequently complicated and layered. Friendships are filtered through hierarchy. Support often comes with conditions. Alliances shift softly over time and can change with the tides of protocol, tradition, or public perception. Kate has had to learn, sometimes painfully, whom she can trust, when to speak up, and when silence may be the wiser course. Every conversation carries potential consequence, and a single misjudgment can ripple far beyond the immediate moment. Living in that environment demands constant vigilance, emotional acuity, and the strategic mind capacities Kate has had to refine during her years in royal life. This poisonous atmosphere is not contained within palace walls. It informs and shapes public expectations and touches almost every aspect of daily existence. The monarchy is a global institution, and the visibility that comes with that status is relentless. Every outfit chosen, every small gesture, and every family gathering is examined and interpreted. Social media ensures that nothing remains private for long. For a mother trying to cultivate a sense of normality for her children, this intersection of tradition and technology makes the task profoundly more difficult. Kate has been forced to accept that protecting her family requires continuous negotiation with both age-old custom and modern scrutiny. The stakes in this context are personal and immediate. The toxicity is not an abstract problem to be managed at arm's length. It affects emotional health, mental well-being, and the cohesion of family life. Kate has experienced deep moments of doubt, waves of frustration, and periods of real fatigue. She has watched colleagues and relatives cope with pressures that threaten their sense of self. She has seen how unrelenting public attention can erode relationships, produce cruel criticism, and cause private anguish. For her, the fundamental challenge is not only to survive within the system, but to shield her children from its corrosive effects while she navigates it herself. What makes this environment particularly harmful is its blend of visibility and invisibility. Public appearances present a polished image of glamour and perfection, while the mechanisms that produce those images are often rigid, intrusive, and emotionally costly. Policies, traditions, and unwritten rules govern behaviour with little tolerance for personal preference. Every smile is curated, every gesture rehearsed, and every word weighed. For Kate, living within these pressures has demanded an exacting balancing act, representing the dignity the role requires, while carving out whatever autonomy she can to protect her family. The toxicity also reaches into psychological territory, subtle manipulation, indirect control, and the reinforcement of fear. Mistakes are rarely forgotten. They can be recorded in institutional memory and sometimes weaponized against those who deviate from expected behaviour. Kate has learned to move through that landscape with caution, patience, and strategic intent. She has cultivated allies, sought counsel when needed, and developed discreet methods for asserting influence without provoking open conflict. Even so, the palace environment remains uncertain and unpredictable, and the consequences for missteps can be enormous. Although Kate has displayed remarkable poise in public, she has also felt the toll in private. Long nights of reflection, moments of quiet frustration, and persistent worry about her children's welfare are frequent parts of her inner life. She thinks beyond the immediate glare of publicity. She ponders the long-term consequences of raising children within such a tightly managed and scrutinised world. Each choice she makes carries weight, and every decision helps shape the future trajectory of her family. The toxic dynamics are intensified by historic gendered expectations. Royal women often shoulder disproportionate levels of scrutiny. Kate must negotiate the intersecting demands of motherhood, public service, and constant public judgment, a mix that frequently amplifies criticism and leaves little room for forgiveness. She watches the patterns that affected the women who came before her and recognises how systemic forces continue to challenge female autonomy within the institution. The balance between duty and personal preference is fragile, and errors in judgment can be costly in both personal and public terms. Yet it is precisely within this poisonous context that the seed for change can be found. Kate's deepening awareness of the pressures and the costs of palace life has strengthened her resolve to create a different reality for her children. She understands the risks, the obstacles, and the potential fallout. Still, she persists. Her maternal instincts push her to carve out spaces of normality, emotional safety, and meaningful autonomy, even when she does so inside a structure that seems designed to deny those freedoms. This quiet resistance is both strategic and deeply personal. It reflects a clear recognition of what is at stake and a willingness to put family first. So what does it mean to raise children inside a system that is simultaneously protective and poisonous? It means daily negotiation. It means strategic compromise. It means steady emotional resilience. And it means extraordinary courage. Kate stands as evidence that even within the most rigid and toxic institutions, it is possible to assert agency, to prioritise love, and to protect what matters most. Still, the pressure is relentless. Every choice invites public scrutiny, critique, and consequence. The central question that shadows every decision is plain and painful. Can a mother truly protect her children in a world designed to control, to watch, and to manipulate? Can she create islands of safety and normal life when the institution itself is omnipresent and unforgiving? Kate has started to answer that question through careful actions, deliberate strategy, and an unshakable maternal instinct. But she is also realistic about the limits of what she can accomplish. She knows the journey will remain perilous and that the stakes are higher than they have ever been. Just as she thought she had found a way to navigate the palace with grace and shrewdness, a new challenge emerged, one that would test her resolve, her courage, and her commitment to her children in ways that no one could have predicted. The change began as whispers travelling the corridors, quiet conversations behind closed doors, and subtle looks exchanged across richly decorated rooms. Gradually, those whispers grew louder until it became undeniable. Kate was preparing to make a decision that would shock the United Kingdom and the wider world. This announcement was not a routine statement about a title or a tour. It concerned something far deeper: motherhood, family, and the courage to confront centuries of expectation. What exactly she was about to reveal remained a mystery to the public, but the implications were clear. This would not be a small adjustment. It would be a challenge to long-standing assumptions about loyalty, duty, and hierarchy. The public had no inkling of what was to come. Headlines spun theories. Was it a new charitable initiative, a surprise tour, or a subtle change in protocol? Kate carried on with composed public appearances, smiling for cameras and fulfilling duties with impeccable grace, even as a profound internal shift was taking shape. Behind that poised exterior, a vision was forming, one meant to question assumptions, to defy habit, and to reimagine what motherhood could look like inside the royal family. At the core of Kate's decision was a subject she had wrestled with for many years: the emotional safety of her children. George, Charlotte, and Louis were growing up in a world saturated by expectation, an existence shaped by obligations they could not yet comprehend. After countless nights of reflection, deep conversations with Prince William, and consultations with trusted advisors, she came to a conclusion that some would label radical. She would step back from certain royal responsibilities in order to prioritise her children's normal childhood and emotional well-being. Think about the courage that choice required. To publicly choose motherhood over monarchy is almost unprecedented in an institution founded on duty and tradition. Kate's announcement was not merely symbolic, it was transformative. It challenged assumptions about loyalty and hierarchy and posed a direct question to the monarchy about what truly matters. The message was clear. The happiness and healthy development of her children mattered more than public approbation or ceremonial obligation. The lead-up to the announcement was deliberate and carefully managed. The palace prepared for possible backlash. Advisors debated messaging, timing, and how to shape public perception. Media outlets speculated endlessly, with commentators praising or criticising in equal measure. Throughout the planning, a single truth guided Kate: love for her children and a desire to give them the kind of childhood she had once valued herself. When the announcement arrived, its impact was immediate. Kate, composed yet visibly moved, spoke with candour about the challenges of raising children in a life defined by attention and expectation. She articulated her commitment to George, Charlotte and Louis, acknowledging the difficulty of balancing public duty with private responsibility. She declared she would step back from certain royal duties to ensure her children could grow up with as much normality as possible. The reaction was swift and intense. Social media flared. News outlets covered the statement extensively. Public opinion divided between admiration and incredulity. How could a princess so devoted to duty choose otherwise? Yet, even amid scepticism, there was admiration for the boldness and deliberation of her choice. It was not impulsive. It was thought through, measured, and rooted in maternal conviction. Behind palace doors, reactions were mixed. Some within the family and among advisors were supportive, recognising the unprecedented nature of the decision and the sincerity behind it. Others were concerned, worrying about public perception, the balance of duties within the family, and the long-term implications for the monarchy. Kate, however, remained firm. She had considered the risks, braced for criticism, and placed the well-being of her family above all else. The announcement also exposed broader truths about the institution itself. For centuries, the monarchy has privileged duty and hierarchy over personal choice. Kate's decision forced a reckoning, a public consideration of the human costs of sustained scrutiny and rigid expectation. By choosing her children over protocol, she compelled the monarchy, the media, and the public to reconsider what truly matters in a changing era. Her act was not merely personal. It was a statement to an institution about the value of family and emotional safety. Kate's announcement ignited debates that spread across the nation and reached around the world. Journalists, commentators, and experts passed each phrase, examined every nuance, and weighed the possible repercussions. Supporters praised her courage and foresight, celebrating what they saw as a rare and humane stand. Critics raised thorny questions about the implications for the monarchy's public image, its continuity, and the careful choreography that has long defined royal duty. Through the noise and argument, however, one fact remained unmistakable. Kate's declaration had shifted the conversation about motherhood, duty, and the limits of tradition in ways that would not soon be forgotten. The emotional gravity of the announcement cannot be overstated. Kate spoke not as someone seeking approval or applause, but as a mother quietly asserting a set of priorities grounded in love and protection. She acknowledged how difficult the choice had been, the personal sacrifices it demanded, and the challenges that would surely follow. Because her words were delivered with genuine feeling, authenticity, and a willingness to be vulnerable, they struck a chord. For Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, that moment signified a mother prepared to fight fiercely for their right to a normal and joyful childhood, despite relentless public scrutiny. The announcement also pulled back a little of the curtain on the careful, long-term strategies Kate had quietly used to safeguard her children. She spoke of preserving private routines, drawing clearer boundaries around public engagements, and shielding her children from needless exposure whenever possible. Those strategies, which had been developing behind the scenes for years, were now part of a public narrative. Suddenly, people were given a rare glimpse into the small, deliberate acts that make it possible to raise children within royalty while trying to preserve a degree of normality and emotional safety. Even so, uncertainty lingered like a shadow. The palace, the press, and the public would continue to scrutinise, analyse, and judge each new choice she made. Her decision had set a precedent, but it also opened a host of fresh questions. How would the monarchy adapt to this rebalancing of personal choice and institutional expectations? What new tensions would arise as private family life and public duty were renegotiated? How would the children themselves learn to live between privilege and scrutiny, between affection and performance? The announcement marked a turning point, but it was by no means the final chapter. Kate had signalled her priorities, asserted maternal authority, and challenged long-standing assumptions, yet the full consequences were only beginning to unfold. An institution long accustomed to conformity would now face the ripples of an unprecedented choice. For Kate, the work of managing this new reality was only beginning, protecting her children, sustaining her public role, and reconciling deeply held personal values with the heavy expectations of public life. The central question loomed large. How far was she prepared to go to ensure her children's safety and happiness? What conversations were occurring behind palace doors? What unforeseen complications might surface as she sought to redefine the boundary between motherhood and monarchy? The next steps, after an announcement that had already made headlines across the world, would carry her into uncharted territory and test the limits of her courage, tactical thinking, and maternal resolve in ways few could have predicted. The reaction was explosive. Within hours, news outlets across the United Kingdom and overseas were reporting on Kate's unprecedented decision. Social media, filled with hashtags, memes, heated threads, and emotional commentary. Was this an act of betrayal against centuries of tradition, a bold declaration of maternal courage, or the opening move of a subtle revolution inside one of the world's oldest institutions? The public response was immediate, varied, and strongly felt, reflecting a deep and ongoing tension between collective expectation and private choice. Across the United Kingdom, The mood was mixed. Many people watched with awe and admiration, identifying with a mother who seemed willing to put family above pomp, protocol, and centuries of expectation. Voices rose in praise. She was seen as modern, relatable, and brave. Parents especially resonated with the struggle to balance career, family, and societal pressure, finding in Kate's choice a recognition of their own daily dilemmas. Yet other voices were sharply critical. Opponents argued that her choice struck at the heart of the monarchy itself. Headlines questioned the effect on royal duties, on public engagements, and on the institution's image. Tabloid language grew fierce, framing the development as a potential rupture in continuity and a threat to established order. For those invested in preserving centuries of unbroken tradition, the announcement felt destabilizing. Public institutions and experts also weighed in. Scholars and commentators debated the long-term consequences. Some contended that Kate's decision established a new and valuable precedent that future royals could reference when balancing personal priorities against public duty. Others warned that repeatedly privileging private choice over ceremonial obligation could gradually erode the perceived authority of the monarchy. The debates were heated and often complex, reflecting a difficult interplay between historical precedent and the demands of contemporary life. Inside the palace, reactions were no less complicated. Courtiers, advisors, and senior royals grappled with practical and symbolic implications. Some quietly supported Kate, appreciating the sincerity of her motives and the careful thought behind her planning. These allies, moved by the difficulty of raising children in public life, offered discreet counsel and pragmatic help. Others, more conservative in instinct, worried about the precedent and the possible impact on public confidence in the institution. Whispers circulated in private rooms. Did this signal a step toward greater personal autonomy, or the start of a wider unravelling of tradition? Media coverage reflected this duality. Sensationalist outlets ran with dramatic headlines and speculative narratives, while more measured publications offered in-depth analysis and thoughtful commentary. Social media amplified both extremes, enabling instant responses that ranged from heartfelt support to fierce condemnation. Across platforms, one thing was clear. Kate's announcement had captured public imagination and sparked conversations that extended well beyond palace walls. The public reaction was deeply emotional. Many parents felt relief and validation, seeing in Kate's choice a mirror of their own struggles and priorities. Debates about modern parenting, the role of duty, and the place of tradition in family life gained new urgency. For some, Kate's act confirmed that even within formal institutions, personal values and maternal instinct could prevail. For others, it raised uncomfortable questions about duty, privilege, and the limits of individual choice. Historians and royal commentators drew parallels to earlier moments in royal life, notably to Princess Diana, whose approach to motherhood and public presence had likewise challenged expectations. Some argued that Kate was carving out a new model of royal parenting rooted in emotional intelligence, privacy, and children's welfare. Others cautioned that the long-term consequences were unpredictable and could, in time, reshape the monarchy in ways not yet fully imagined. Behind closed doors, the palace became a hive of intense activity. Advisors met to refine messaging and anticipate reactions. Private meetings took place in ornate rooms as strategists considered every possible outcome. The effects on public opinion, the responses of other family members, and the precedent being set for future generations. Throughout it all, Kate remained composed and resolute. Her stance conveyed a firm message. Maternal instinct would not be compromised. Even within her own family, responses varied. Prince William, while strong in his public support, was acutely aware of the long-term ramifications and the delicate negotiations ahead. The couple consulted on every detail, weighing immediate comfort for their children against the implications for institutional duties. Their choice was not solitary, it was a shared decision reflecting mutual values and careful planning. The text that followed in the original document ends abruptly and does not include the unrelated section about Prince Harry or legal disputes connected to Princess Diana's will. That fragment appears misplaced and was therefore not altered, as it does not fit the narrative focused on Kate Middleton and her decision.